0-3. I'm going to repeat that. 0-3. I am officially cursed. I have yet to witness in person an OU victory against the Kansas State Wildcats. My kryptonite must be away games and home games against Kansas State, which must be fitting because OU is stunned. I mean, is it really stunned though at this point? As they drop their first game of the season and the first game of conference play, 34-41 at home against Kansas State. Though I don't think it was even that close, despite my own opinion that we outplayed ourselves versus Kansas State being world beaters and them having just a better execution of their game plan. That all aside, though, first off, I do want to congratulate the Kansas State Wildcats for their victory and yet again, not only walking into our house and securing a victory, but giving Venables his first loss as the Sooners head coach, which is kind of fitting if you think about it in everything's retrospect. I guess he was not immune to the dark purple Kansas Wizard magic. Now, focus on K State for a sec. Remember the Adrian Martinez experience that I kept joking about prior to the game? Because that performance last night is what K State and Nebraska thought they were going to get with him. We did not pressure him all night, which let him sit back in the pocket and do whatever he wanted, and not to mention him running the ball as well. It's not surprising that when you don't bring the pressure, Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn were going to punish you for it. Lanes were open all day for them, and they just ran the ball against us all night. Defensively, they just abused us in the middle, as not just in the middle, but also in the seams as well. And I don't think I can think of any point at time where we brought the house at all, at least for what I could remember. I mentioned it as well in my pregame video. Third downs were going to be the difference maker in this game, and that's exactly what happened. OU could not get off the field, and it resulted in Kansas State having drive after drive and just killing that clock at that point. Now, let's focus on though OU because that's what you're here for. As a whole, if we're all being honest about this is what we were expecting with the same personnel this year going into Venable's first year. There was going to be growing pains, and we were going to expect games like this. That's no excuse, but you do have to make sure your expectations are tempered as a whole. Not to mention that me personally, I was beating my drum preseason that Kansas State was a top 25 team, and it was going to take a victory over a top 10 or a top 15 team to vault them into the top 25. I personally thought they got robbed, but that's me. I'll mention it later as well. Even with the above, though, that is no excuse for the penalties that happened last night. Penalties were all over the place, which was a hallmark signature of Benedict Brisket's regime before Venables. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what is it going to take to get this team disciplined and work those bad habits out? Is it running laps? Is it more practice about this? I don't have the answers. I don't claim to be an X's and O's guys, but whatever it is right now, it's not working. 10 penalties, I think it was 10 last night, is inexcusable. Guys, y'all got to clean it up. 34, and not even that, 34 points should be enough to beat an opponent with the recruits and talent that we have. Yet again, we see the results of OU coming out flat. Speaking of flat, let's talk about the offense. I hold on to my personal belief and my own opinion that I absolutely hate the up tempo offense, and that is an absolute awful strategy. I know I could be a lone man on this island, but I just believe it is disadvantageous to both the offense and the defense, especially when you don't have the personnel to run it. And it really should only be focused on working on it in 2-minute drills. I understand the theory behind it of the offense scores that's going to get the ball more, but at the same time, if you're just doing three and outs, the offense is not gelling and getting time to establish both the run and the pass game. On the flip side, when you're going 3-0, you're throwing a defense out there that is absolutely tired, and they're going to get burned as a result of it. I personally do not like the up tempo, and I do think we saw a lot of that last night, especially when you look at the time of possession last night, especially in that first half. That first half is inexcusable, as you see. Oh, you only had the ball for almost 10 minutes to Kansas State's 20. That said, I am fully in awe as well at some of the play calling last night on like 3rd and 2 and 4th and 5. Levy came out with a really crappy game plan. There is no other way around it. It was garbage. It seemed last night to me our entire strategy was chuck and pray. Does that mean, like, based on that, does Dylan have faith in his receivers? Does Levy not have faith in Dylan's arm? I don't know. I understand chuck and pray down the field, but that's not going to work every single time. That's just Hail Marrying it. Um, I just, as a whole, I still don't understand why he keeps trying to force the pass when you have the run game that you need to establish. And if we did do it, why are we playing to K State's strengths with the pass game when their run defense is a little more suspect? And we saw last night, we saw the success that we had with the run game. I just don't understand that type of game planning. Are they overthinking it? Is that something I'm not saying? I just don't know. Um, Individually, looking on the stat sheet, I know a lot of people are going to give Dylan a hard time, but Dylan was not necessarily the problem. But you cannot ignore that Dylan is not making those walk-off touchdown throws, especially when your receiver is running in stride. The ball got around, sure, but you can make any stat sheet look very pretty, and it just may not mean anything in very meaningful ways. Yes, he didn't turn the ball over, and he's making smart decisions that way. But I do feel like we're starting to ask him to do passes that are not in his abilities at this point, 4 games in. Again, you got to make those touchdowns, those free touchdowns. You have to do that, Dylan. Flip side of that, Mims and Weiss, for all intents and purposes, they got a couple of balls, but most of the time they were one on one last night, and were constantly being receivers. And I don't understand how we did not abuse the sidelines for that reason last night, just to keep us honest. I think for me personally, the only person who made a true impact last night was Eric Gray. Though I also die by the fact that, in my opinion, we're throwing the ball too much around and not focusing on the run game as a whole, which we were having some success with it as the game progressed. Again, this does not excuse the drive ending penalties. 10 penalties on the O line is just inexcusable. Murray, like you gotta do stuff, man. You can't. That's backbreaking. And we all saw that against better competition. You can pull that stuff with UTEP. You can pull that stuff with Kent State, but with better competition, they exploited it and they scored on us. And it killed our drives. Again, I don't know what you work out of them, but whatever they're doing, they have to figure something out. This team also needs to appear like, I've noticed through 3 games now, going from into 4, that they need a spark to get that momentum going on offense. It seems like against UTEP, Kent State, and Nebraska, they had something that led to that offensive production. And I think that would have happened last night with that Stoops touchdown. Unfortunately, we didn't have that last night, and as a result, it seemed like the offense really, really was flat. As a result of it. Now, I'm saying a lot about the offense for it, but I mean, if offense is, ironically, the one where I say that defense has been the best unit at this point throughout the year, not this game. Defense was probably the worst unit out of this entire game, because I'm almost to the point, me personally, that whenever we say Oklahoma has a defense, it's the equivalent of saying Texas is back. Because I'm pretty sure the only defense I saw last night was the unveiling of the Salmon Brothers statues. Truth hurts. They looked like their 2021 forms. There was arm tackling and missed tackles. They were giving up huge third downs. The game, I mean, it was earlier, but the game, they say, was over with that third and long that we gave up in the fourth quarter. But let's be honest, it was definitely over prior to them, because they could not make a stop if their lives depended on it. As a result, of course, on par with this, we made Martinez look like a Heisman candidate. It didn't help too that the refs did not call holding and everything all night. Against the Kansas State O line. They were doing a lot of armpit holding, and several people in my section were pointing out like they were hooking and like pulling, but the refs refused to call that. But I mean, one point of that is not the cause of that loss. It's a collective effort. It just hurts your cause for defense. Based on that performance, though, no player on the team is going to be able to skip lines at the bar anytime soon. And I mean, it is what it is. So OU drops a goose egg against Kansas State yet again. And, me personally, as a fan, it's disappointing. I mean, people from across the spectrum, from beat writers to the administration, are always wondering why the fans are not nearly engaged or invested as they should be at the home games, and instead are starting to choose to stay home over attending it. I mean, when you lay goose eggs once a season and have to drive home in the 2+ hour subsequent traffic as a result going home is why me personally, I've come to the conclusion that when a coach or the admin or staff asks the fans to come out, be loud, make noise, make your presence heard, that coach speak for the team. That coach speak means that the team had a horrible, horrible weekend practice. I've just been snake bitten so many times from that, and it's for it just to not be true at this point. And I mean, look at how many times this has happened when the staff gets the crowd hyped for like getting the crowd engaged with the team and making it as difficult for the opposing team as possible. Whether it's like stripe the stadium, the Sooner lights, or special statue unveilings. Again, and some of the stuff too has more of the player oriented stuff like alternate uniforms or the Sharks nickname. You catch my drift. They come out flat, they play down to opponent and lose. It gets tiring and it's just very, very disappointing. So I just want to throw that in. It's just disappointing every single time they lay a goose egg like this. Going undefeated is hard, but the way like life last night, like you can't even be mad at that point because you almost had the expectation for it. So, what did this game, though, tell us about us? First, I think OU has been humbled. They've been brought back down to earth from the first 3 weeks of the season, and our expectations have been tempered for what to expect with Venables, especially in his first year. It's not excuses, but remember, we still have a lot of holdovers from last year, and it's going to impact the schemes you're running and the executions of it. Not to mention that Venables, all these big time recruits we're celebrating, those are still a year or two down the line. Remember, you're going to lose games. And heck, Bob lost a lot of games in his first year. It's just the nature of playing competitively for that. And you have to accept that. I also think that OU failed its first true adversity gut check, as I would say with what we saw with Nebraska was fool's gold. And is this team really, really that good? I think we all got a sound answer last night of that answer is no. One thing I did notice with this team as well is I wonder when we're going to address the timeout situation. I was not very, very happy with the timeouts that we left on the field in the first half. I'm going to be curious if that was a one off or this is going to be something going forward. Concerning the Big 12, though, to me, the Big 12 is wide open right now. If we're eyeing the playoff, it's still in reach as this year is pretty chaotic. So I don't think you're out of it, but you got your one mulligan. You lose again, and it's out of the picture for the entire year. Now, even if we make it in, I don't think we win it all. Like based on this year's on the field product, not happening. But you're still in the running somewhat. It also makes you think, though, what fight do you have in you for these other 8 games in the conference? How do you respond and rebound to this loss? Because it's not going to get any easier. It's only going to get tougher. And playing like this is also why I was worried against Nebraska after the UTEP and Kent State games, and why I'm honestly worried now a little bit at the TCU in Texas. Because if you play like that, you're going to get beat. Mistakes pile up, and the other team takes advantage of it, especially if they're very disciplined about it. I've come to the conclusion too that you can base it. I know it's going to be out there, and I know I'm probably in the minority on it, but you can kind of base a team off the first game. I would say how OU has played against UTEP is what you were going to get against Kansas State, and we got the results of that. It is what it is. So to wrap it all up in a nice bow, though, you know what truly the most disappointing part of all this is? I didn't get to pick up Brahms on my way home because Brahms is only for winners. So that's all I got, guys. Be sure to tune in tonight for group therapy session number 1 as Sean and I recap the first loss of the season and steps going in before we look forward to TCU. So be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you are the first to know when I upload a video or go live. So Boomer Sooner, there's only one Oklahoma. I'll see y'all all tonight as I'm going to get back to Splatfest, which, for all y'all know, go Team Gear.